Imagine walking into your garden. You kneel down and you push a piece of copper wire into the soil. No cable, no generator, no battery, just metal in the ground. Weeks later, you notice something. The plants seem more alert, more stable, as if an invisible factor were synchronizing them. Sounds like an internet myth? Then explain this. Why did a French physicist write an entire book about electricity in plants in 1783? Why was there an International Congress on Electroculture in 1912 with government participation? Why did multiple countries research it for decades? And why did the topic suddenly disappear without ever being clearly disproven? Stay until the end, because what we uncover there will change the way you see your garden forever. Paris, 1747. A physicist named Jean-Antoine Nollet sits in his laboratory doing something almost no one in his time understands. He electrically charges seeds, not with high voltage, not with machines, with controlled, gentle discharges. The seedlings grow faster than the untreated ones. He writes it down. The world shrugs. In 1783, Pierre Bertholon publishes an entire book on the subject, De l'électricité des végétaux. His thesis: plants are not passive beings. They interact with the electrical field of the atmosphere. Then comes Salem Lemström, Finnish physicist, polar researcher, observer. In Lapland, he notices something. In years with strong auroral activity, trees grow more vigorously. He could ignore it. Instead, he builds experimental fields. He stretches fine wires over potatoes, carrots, celery, measures, documents, weights. Yields increase. 1912. RAMS, the International Electroculture Congress. Government representatives, scientists, official funding programs. This was not a fringe idea. It was serious, state-level research. And then synthetic fertilizer arrived. Measurable, simple, marketable. Electric field theories were more complex, and complex things disappear quickly when simpler solutions are more profitable. If it had all been nonsense, why did governments invest years of research? Today we know something Lemström only suspected, and it's stranger than anything he documented. Plants are electrically active. Their cell membranes maintain voltages between -40 and -120 millivolts. Ion channels open and close depending on voltage. Calcium signals propagate as electrical waves through entire tissues. When a plant experiences mechanical stress, a beetle bites, a storm bends it, its electrical pattern changes within seconds, not minutes, seconds. This is measurable, reproducible, standard knowledge in modern plant physiology. Growth is not a purely chemical process. It is electrochemical. And the soil? Moist soil conducts. Minerals carry charges. Microorganisms respond to redox states and electrical gradients. Roots do not grow randomly. They orient themselves toward conductivity differences in the soil. This is called electrotropism. That means your garden is not a static nutrient reservoir. It is a dynamic electrical system. And this is where a simple piece of copper suddenly becomes very interesting. Between the ionosphere and the Earth's surface, there is a permanent voltage gradient. In fair weather, about 100 volts per meter of altitude difference. Lightning strikes continuously around the globe, around 100 times per second. It charges the atmosphere. It maintains a planetary electrical balance. This is known as the atmospheric electric circuit. Your garden is not outside this system. It is right in the middle of it, invisible but measurable. When you introduce conductive metal into this environment, you locally alter field lines, not dramatically, but physically real. And now it gets even more interesting. In the 1920s, a man steps onto the stage who takes it a step further. George Lakhovsky, engineer, researcher, unconventional thinker. His thesis was radical. Every living cell functions like a small oscillating circuit, not metaphorically, physically. Think of a tuning fork. If you produce the right tone nearby, it begins to vibrate without being touched. That's resonance. Lakhovsky transferred this principle to biology. He developed the multi-wave oscillator, a device that generated a broad spectrum of electromagnetic frequencies. His assumption: If cells respond to electrical fields, a suitable frequency spectrum could influence their stability. At the same time, he experimented with open metal rings, coils capable of receiving and reflecting electromagnetic energy. Now pay attention to the geometry. A copper spiral in a garden is, from a physical standpoint, also an open resonator. It does not generate electricity, but it can influence field lines. If plants operate electrically, and if the Earth's field pulses daily, what happens when we place a resonator into this system? This may sound like yesterday. It is today. In modern biophysics, bioelectricity is an active field of research. Electrical gradients influence cell division. They guide growth directions. They coordinate regeneration processes. In plants, electrical potential changes are measured directly at roots and leaves, in millivolts, precisely, reproducibly. This does not mean copper equals miracle, but it does mean biology is sensitive to physical fields, and this has been almost entirely forgotten in agriculture. But why? And who benefits from that forgetting? Copper is highly conductive. In moist soil, minimal galvanic effects occur between metal, water, and minerals. Microvolt level potentials. We're talking about currents smaller than what an LED needs to glow. And yet, biological systems operate precisely in this range. Cell membranes respond to minimal voltage changes. Ion transport is voltage dependent. Even tiny gradients are enough to trigger signaling cascades. It's not about supplying energy, it's about modulating signals. Maybe electroculture isn't an amplifier. Maybe it's a metronome, like a conductor who doesn't make the orchestra louder, but synchronizes it. Electrical field experiments show a pattern that surprises most people. Not explosion, stabilization. Plants respond more robustly to drought periods. Root structures adapt more efficiently. Stress responses appear more coordinated. And that is crucial in a time when climate extremes are no longer exceptions, but normality. Maybe we've been looking for electroculture in the wrong place. Not as a growth booster, but as a resilience mechanism. And resilience beats records every time. If you want to test it, as Lemstrom might have, wind untreated copper wire into a spiral, insert it into the soil about 8 to 12 inches, 20 to 30 centimeters deep. No electricity, no battery. Connect nothing. Create a comparison bed next to it. Same soil, same plant, same watering. Then observe height, leaf color, yield, reaction to heat. If it's nonsense, you'll see it. If it works, you won't miss it. And now comes the part almost no one knows. The Earth's electric field is not constant. It pulses. In the early 20th century, research ships measured a global pattern, the Carnegie curve. The atmospheric voltage field follows a daily rhythm, a planetary beat, worldwide synchronized, every day for millions of years. That means your garden exists under a global electrical pulse, whether you know it or not. Maybe electroculture was never about creating something new. Maybe it was about consciously using an ancient natural rhythm, one plants have always known, one we forgot. Plants are electrically active. The soil is conductive. The Earth carries a global voltage field. These are not theories. They are physical facts. Perhaps we focused so much on chemistry that we lost the physical dimension of agriculture, not because it failed, but because it couldn't be packaged. And maybe a new understanding of farming doesn't begin in a laboratory, not in a factory, but where it has always begun, kneeling in the soil, with a piece of wire in your hand, and the willingness to ask what this earth can still do when we stop merely managing it. Write in the comments, have you tested electroculture? Or is this physics or myth to you? Subscribe to Rooted. The next door to knowledge opens soon.